Councilman Belleville, now on the record, thank you for joining us and congratulations on your election. You ran against a data center and won.
Yes, sir.
The developer's response was to hold a press conference the week after and say he doesn't think that election spoke for everyone. Is that how it works in Festus?
So the election was a grassroots effort. We had a record number of people that turned out. Never in the history of Festus have we had the widespread participation in the election. When people vote, then they are heard. And we had 4 candidates win, 3 of which have never run for election before. And overall, we won by about 65% margin. So we don't just have the
turnout was low, but it was a big margin.
Right. No, we don't have just data center in our mind. We also have transparency and community participation. The community wants to be involved in big decisions like this.
And the developer did say he thought that transparency had backfired. There needed to be more of it now that they're on this side and they have some hindsight. You've already been sworn in.
Yes, sir.
The same week, Bob Clark held that press conference and said on the record that he believes CRG's rights are legally vested and that he will, quote, aggressively defend them regardless of what Festus voters said at the ballot box. You were elected specifically to stop this project. How do you stop something that a developer says he has the legal right to build?
Well, first of all, he also said that he doesn't want to have business where he's not welcome. And so he has agreed to meet with me and the other new counselors and have a sit down. We haven't had that scheduled yet. But there's a framework agreement which has legally been signed by an ordinance. And yes, that is a solid agreement. What we don't have is we don't have a plan. He doesn't have a customer. So we have no idea what the scope of this is. When they first brought data center regulations to us in October, and I was on planning and zoning, they said that, we're going to have some regulation for data center to protect the people. Okay. In my mind, I'm thinking of a large warehouse with a lot of servers, air conditioners, and that type of setup. Mm-hmm. So the data center and a hyperscale data center is a whole brand new animal. And the definition of what a hyperscale data center seems like it's being redefined almost every week.
Well, the technology does move quickly. He says he's been building things like this for 10 years, but some of the cooling systems are newer. Let me ask you this. What would Bob Clark have to say to you to earn your support?
Well, first of all, he would have to say that he understands that we have subdivisions that butt up to this property. Are those subdivisions going to have a large privacy fence that's 10 feet tall at the border of their property going into where the data centers are going to be built, and then the buildings are going to be 1,500 feet away? Exactly what's it going to look like? This property borders Highway 67. If it was a smaller building on 67 and we had, say, the top part of the property where graves have been found, where there's a pine tree, where there was a burial from an epidemic back in the 1800s and other things, if that area was developed into a park, maybe with a large lake, and there was a buffer zone, then we have a conversation.
I hear you. More than 300 Festus residents filed formal complaints requesting an independent water study. As of this conversation, the city has not yet responded to a single one, as I'm aware. The developer agreement gives the developer the right to drill private wells from the same aquifer under those homes. I asked Bob Clark at the press conference, what happens to the neighbor's wells if his runs dirty? He said on camera, that's a question I cannot answer. As a newly elected council member who cares about this issue, is that a question you can answer?
So with regard to the complaints, yes, there's been a large number of complaints have been filed in relationship to this data center. However, since we don't have a building, we don't have a plan, we don't have a scope, it's hard to address a complaint with the city when we just have an idea, and the idea is the framework agreement.
It's hypothetical at this point.
Yes. So a framework agreement basically is just a financial arrangement that was negotiated with a negotiator for the city. The city officials said, is this the best deal you can get? He said yes. They said, good, we'll sign it.
In the absence of those water studies on a yet-to-be-built data center in Festus, are you reliant on what? Water studies conducted at other data centers?
Well, the big thing with water is that if we go back just a few years to 2020, Missouri DNR issued what they call a water bankruptcy, where over-agriculture and development was affecting our overall aquifer. That has not improved. The replenishment rate is not keeping up with what's being drawn out.
So
the
you're
big
not
concern,
just worried about polluted water. You're worried about the overall level.
I'm worried about, first of all, overall level.
It's right there near the Mississippi.
Right. And Mississippi's been, the last 2 years has been running low. I belong to a boat club on the Mississippi, and we've seen record low levels on the Mississippi, and it's affecting barge traffic.
Let's talk transparency, because I know that data center technology is interesting to some, but transparency is interesting to everybody. The city's administrator, in their own email, dated August 8 last year, described the data center discussions, and I'm quoting from the document, confidential. Council members were briefed in groups of 3, just below the threshold. The lawsuit alleges that was on purpose to avoid the open meetings requirement. You were not on the council when any of that happened.
That's correct.
When did you first learn this project was being negotiated in this manner, and how did you find out?
So I opened up a Facebook account for about 9 weeks during the election process, and someone had alerted me to that some of the results of a sunshine law request were posted online. So I read those on a Facebook posting, and that's how I learned about it.
The text messages entered as court exhibits show city officials describing opponents of this project as, quote, a sideshow of uneducated people, and warning each other to, quote, keep the flock herded. You were among that group of the sideshow of uneducated people, to quote them. When you read messages like that, what do you conclude about how your city government is operating?
Well, I think if the city officials could take it back, they would. I think they are a little bit unhappy that they said those things. Yes, we had.
You think they regret it?
We had 13 people that were running for these election places, and we had 4 people or 5 people that were all on board for this without getting more information. So we were all trying to gather information and asking questions, but unfortunately, we did not have a Q&A set up where we could ask a question and then get an answer back from our representatives.
I keep coming back to this question about who speaks for Festus. Bob Clark said he doesn't believe that the election necessarily speaks for the entire constituency. He said he hopes the newly elected council members, and you've already suggested this, will represent all of their constituents, not just the people who elected them recently. Councilman, who elected you, and what did they elect you to do?
So I went door to door, and there's about 2,700 people in my ward. And when I would get out there and go door to door, I would walk 8 to 10 miles those days, and I had a lot of good conversations with people. And over, the people would say, please do what you can to stop this data center. We're fearful because we don't know what it's going to do. So we're trying to get answers on exactly what is the data center going to do. We would like to see a pause on that. So currently we're in a pause because we haven't had a plan submitted, and we haven't had a conversation with the developers. So
is fear of the unknown reason to stop something, or is it reason to make that stuff known?
I think we need to make it known. There are utility costs that we don't know, total water usage, noise, the location we now know the tax breaks. Something I can explain about data centers. So a data center is going to bring in water, whether it's from an aquifer or from the city, and it's going to have to process it to make it clean. It has to be extremely clean because it's going to wash over the computer chips. After it's a closed loop system and it cycles over and over again, eventually some's going to be discharged. On average, about 80% of that water is lost through evaporation. They have the technology where they can clean the water that comes out just like they have to clean the water before it comes in. So the result is, on one side we have hazardous waste, and on the other side we have pure water, but it's hot, so it has to go into cooling pools. What nobody's talking about is, as this cycles over and over again over those computer chips, microparticles of rare earth minerals are going to come off of that and go in the water. If we can separate those rare earth metals that come out over thousands and hundreds of thousands of chips can be recycled and can be captured. Interesting.
So you seem both educated on the topic and interested in solutions, not just to burn it all down.
Right.
To use a hyperbolic phrase. I'd like to ask you the same question from a different direction.
Okay.
About who you represent. The people who supported this project, the ones who believed in the economic upside, the benefit, the jobs, the tax dollars, they're your constituents too.
Right.
How do you represent everyone in a community that's divided?
So I've spoken to some of the people in the trades unions, and some of the concern with the union hall is that currently don't have the local people to supply the jobs. Some of those jobs take 3 years of training to get to the level that they need. So I'm having a conversation next week with a group to help me understand where the people are going to come from that's going to supply these jobs. It's all good and great that we can have in Jefferson County, St. Louis County, surrounding counties, that these jobs can go to a site, whether it's building a retail business or it's building a data center. But if we're going to be doing this all off-site, a lot of the hyperscale data centers are scalable. So they're built in modulars, and they bring them in and assemble them, and then they're upscalable so they can continue to build them. The reason they do that is because it saves labor, and we're talking about creating jobs, which is labor. So it seems like there's kind of a disconnect there.
The infrastructure development agreement was approved 6-2. The Sunshine Law counts that were alleged in this lawsuit, if a judge upholds those, sustains those, could void that agreement entirely. Bob Clark, though, says the rights here are vested already. So here's the direct question. If the court does not void the agreement, is there anything else you can do to stop this project? And if so, what is it?
So when the city's involved in a lawsuit, we can't officially comment on lawsuit strategy.
What would you have said to me the day before you were sworn in?
So that's an ordinance. So any ordinance can be looked at by the city government. Maybe an ordinance needs to be improved. Maybe it needs to have another discussion. What the people that support me are saying, include us in the discussion. As these things come up, get our input. Get input from the people that will benefit from the jobs, get people that will be impacted by the location of this. And let's find a solution together. Let's just not go forward with this and ignore all the concerns.
5, 7, 8 years from now, City of Festus, let's say it's flush with cash. It can hire any school administrator it wants. It has enough teachers to teach every school in the entire community. And you can build new parks. The data center is off and running. People are working. There's prosperity. What will have to happen for you to look back at all this and say, maybe I got some of that stuff wrong at the start?
Well, when I talked to Chris McKee at CRG, he said that they typically look at these data center plants of running about 12 to 15 years. So you're saying 8 years out. So 8 years.
Well, they plan
out,
on building the one in Midtown by 2028, and that's a hyperscale project. So
right.
I think they can do it faster.
They possibly can. Right now, there are some components that are on back order over the year. So there's some constraints on the construction. But the thing with money is, when you get enough money to supply the city for all these things, the city's going to be looking for more things they can do. So a certain amount of money is going to give you certain advantages, like you mentioned, but then there's going to be folks that are saying, well, we need more money.
So just a never-ending cycle.
It seems like it's a never-ending cycle. So
is there anything that you'd like to do to spend that money on?
So what I would like to do, I've got a bill that I've got a rough draft on, but I've only been in the office a week.
Let's go. Let's see your work product.
So what I want to do is I want to have a transparency bill. I call it the SIM DC bill. And what it is, it's simple, intelligent management of data center money. I want, if this goes through and we're receiving this money, I want to have it transparent. So with a public budget or public monies, it's all available online for people to look at. So I want to have this bill create a line item or several line items so we see and everyone can see, okay, this money came in from these taxes, this money came in from whatever the sources are. And then
don't city governments already have budgets that require all that?
They do, but I want to identify it separately. So we might be getting...
It's a line item in the budget. It says the money came from here.
Yeah, we might be getting money from water, or city water. So that's going to have to be broken out of that. We might be getting tax money from electricity, so it's got to be broken out of that. There's an abatement on real estate and personal tax. So I want to formulate it so that people can easily see, okay, here's how much money from the data center came in, and maybe put it into a trust for 6 months so that the city plans to use that money specifically for a certain purpose. Mm-hmm. And what we don't want to do, and some cities across the United States have done this, what they've done is they've spent the money before they receive the money. We don't want to get in that situation.
I hear you. Last question for you. I've enjoyed our conversation, and maybe there will be more to come. But I'm curious. You know all the big players, the big names, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Meta. I could go on. Have any of them reached out to you?
No, they've not reached out to me. The only connection I've had with any of them is that I had an interview with AI. So I reached out to AI and
You mean
I
like you
asked
type
them.
this into a chat bot?
I reached out to AI and I said some specific questions. And this is just a conversation starter.
Is this Chat GPT? What is this?
No, not ChatGPT. Just asking AI questions.
Okay.
And so it's a 12-page pamphlet. I can make it available for you if you want. And basically the title is The Neighbor Who Took Over the Neighborhood. One of the biggest concerns is, and you mentioned it too, is that one data center leads to another data center.
You recognize the irony in this.
Yes, that is very ironic.
You asked the data center to tell you why a data center shouldn't be in your backyard?
I'm asking the data center questions to get facts. I'm trying to dispel misinformation.
With a data center?
Yes.
Fascinating. All right, we'll leave it there. Rick Belleville, thanks for the conversation.
Thank you.